Who would like to begin with a question?
I'm always the last one.
It seems that way.
I'm really inspired by your statement that in recent years you decided to teach meditation in a more effective way and try to have more people. I'm wondering the reason for that. I know you have been practiced meditation for 20 or 30 years, and why recent years is out of compassion, or you feel you have a sense of responsibility, or you try to, this is a necessary for progress our practice.
I'm actually wondering what took you so long.
That's the one I've been wondering, yes. Well, it actually began more because I realized that it was necessary as a part of my own path, that in order to go forward, that I needed to undertake the project of helping other people, sharing what I had learned.
How that's so?
How is that so?
Yeah.
Well, one of the effects of the Dharma is that it makes life much easier. Okay? And a downside of that is it can cause a certain amount of complacency. Okay? So that was part of the reason. I had come to a place of being rather complacent with the progress that I had made. Not that it was so much that I didn't still have plenty of good reason in my life to try to overcome the afflictions and further free myself from suffering, but it was good enough that it allowed a lot of complacency to develop. And recognizing that by putting my focus on the needs of other people would give me the sort of jump start I needed, the motivation to get back into my own practice in a deep way. There was that recognition, and then at the same time there were people coming that were very sincere about the Dharma, and they wanted to learn. And some of them had been practicing for a long time, and I could see that they were not making much progress, and I knew that I could help them. And so and in the contact that I was with them, it was that it made them part of that close circle that Einstein talked about in that quote last night, that close circle of people that you can see the lack of a boundary in. So that helped inspire me to begin, because people I could relate to and I see dearly were seriously dedicated, dearly wanted to have success, but the methods that they were using and the practices that they were following weren't getting them anywhere. So that inspired me to start sharing what I knew. And it also made me aware of something that I didn't realize up to that time. I had managed to be sufficiently isolated that I thought all of these people going to all of these retreats and all of these teachers were making great progress and achieving the goal that they were after. And I came to realize that that wasn't really the case, that there really was a problem, that the Dharma was doing a better job of attracting people than it was of satisfying their needs. And so I could just at least see in the immediate situation that I could help, that I had a role to play. But then out of that, my awareness started growing more and more, realizing one of the things I'd long been aware, long before it seemed like everybody else started really catching on to what was happening to the world in terms of overpopulation and resource depletion and global warming and everything else. I had been aware of that for decades, and I'd almost been aware of it and concerned about it for so long that I'd almost given up on caring. It's like nobody else seems to care. But anyway, it was clear to me that this path that the world is on, it needs some really drastic medicine, and that this is the kind of drastic medicine that it needs. The other part of it is all the individuals. I really started to recognize how much suffering there is, just everywhere in all the different forms. And the fact that there is an answer to it, and that something can be done about it. It's true that, and I don't know the solution to this part, that so many people don't even know that there is an answer, and their suffering just accumulates, and they make more and more for themselves. But certainly there are more and more people who realize that there needs to be, that they're experiencing the deep dissatisfaction with their lives the way they are, and the strong urge to seek out something more and something better, something beyond that. That it seems like the number of those people is increasing. That's a feeling that I have. I don't know if you share that feeling, but my feeling is more so than 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago. There's more and more people with that awareness that there's got to be something, there's got to be a better way. There has to be more to life than this. And that coupled with the fact that I can see that if more people in society were capable of doing the work on themselves and freeing themselves of their own suffering, then the impact they would have on other people is tremendous in two ways. One is that they could share the Dharma and the fruits of Dharma with other people, but the other is that even if they didn't do that directly, it would be an influence in our society to de-emphasize the wrong view. De-emphasize the view that competition and aggression combined with desire is really should be regarded as virtues. And our society does. It regards competition as a virtue. And people encourage their children, their 7-year-old and their 12-year-old and their 14-year-old children, they go out and learn to be competitive. My team over your team. The sense of separation. And, just because you happen to live in a neighborhood and go to this school, then the team of this school has to beat everybody else and has to be the best. And of course, an adult, that's nonsense, but that's how we train our kids. Identify with the group you're in, and then everybody else is in some sense or another the enemy or lesser or so on. Advertising, television, magazines, radios, internet, everything is feeding greed, encouraging greed, feeding desire, encouraging desire, Oh, and then some of the worst thing is the last few years, at least 10 or 12 years, people on national radio and television who are just spewing out the worst hatred, Rush Limbaugh and people like that. And it's bad enough that people are spewing out hatred, but the worst thing is that all the people who entertain themselves by listening to hatred. There's something wrong. So anyway, at some point, you could either, I could either stay totally withdrawn and, found my own path and just not be concerned with the rest of the world, or I could try in some way to make a difference, and that's what I chose to do, to see if there's some way that I can make it. And I don't know if I can. I'm just trying, right? And there's a problem. There's a lot of challenges in this. There's 10 of you here, not 1,000. On the other hand, on one side it means, well, so whatever I'm doing and teaching, I'm only reaching 10 people, but then of course whoever you 10 reach and so forth. But then I'm able to communicate with you 10 and to teach you things that I could never possibly teach 1,000 people. I mean, there are some teachers and speakers who can reach large numbers of people at one time, but at least so far I don't think I'm that kind. So I, in terms of what it will all come to in the end and where it will all go, I don't know, but it's really clear to me that it's the right thing to do, it's the best thing to do, and it gives my life meaning and purpose. And so this is what I want to do. And I want to do it as best I can, according to my abilities. And of course that's all I can do, is do it the best I can, according to my abilities. And hopefully, some or all of you will join me in this. I mean, you'll take what you've learned and you'll use it to achieve your own awakening. But you'll also plant the seeds and share it, and in whatever way you can, according to your abilities. Either you might become a teacher, I don't know, or you might just encourage your friends to come to the next retreat that I do. And either way is really good. The main project I have right now, in terms of reaching people, is I want to write a book. Actually, I have in my head probably several books, but the first one is one that just focuses on the very fundamental of the practice itself, that elaborates on the 10 stages. And I want to write it in such a way that people that don't have, people that can't come to my retreat, or people that don't have direct access to a teacher, can take the information and hopefully make really good progress on their own. I want to, in the book, I want to present the same kind of advice and information that I give you in the meditation interviews and dealing with the specific problems that come up. So that's my one big project right now, is that I want to get that book finished, and it's partly done. It's not that far from being done, I guess. I want to get that done and get that out, and hopefully that will reach a whole lot of other people. So, and like I say, there's the ideas for some other books in there as well. There's sort of two parts to what I've been doing with you. One is the practical method, what to do, but the other part is putting it in the context of the path and the goal of the path. And so that's really kind of an obvious book 2 or volume 2 or something. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, when all this started, when you started feeling like you needed to share with people, how long have you been doing it?
When I started feeling like I needed to come out of my cave in the and the mountains. And, it was about 2003, I believe. Is that about right? 2003?
Sometime after Yoshimaiko moved into the mountain area.
Yeah, it was. That's right, because the idea was planted in talking, in the discussion of the Bodhisattva ideal at one of Geshe Michael's silent teachings during his retreat. And so that planted the seed. And that was, he came out in 2003, so I guess that was either sometime in early 2003 or maybe in late 2002. I don't remember exactly when. It was just one comment. It was just one thing, and it might even have been something that he was quoting from something else. I don't know, but it sort of alerted me and planted the seed, and I started thinking about it, and I realized that, yeah, that's what I need to get unstuck. I need to start moving. And then it was shortly after that people started asking to have meditation instructions. Before that, I was living in my seclusion. Nobody knew I was there.
You said you were content with your progress, and you became a little complacent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you weren't practicing as diligently, but
that's right. Yeah, and and there's another thing I should mention that played an important role in all of this I didn't mention. In addition to the students coming to me in person, I started, even before I did much in person, I started teaching on the internet. I became involved in a couple of different discussion groups, and then people from all over the world started asking me meditation questions, and they'd read the answers to the questions that I gave somebody else, and then somebody else, that would inspire them to ask questions. And so I got to a point where I was spending a lot of time every week just answering meditation questions on the internet. And that's an important part of what happened. And then at some point, one of these people started a Yahoo discussion group, basically so there would be a forum for me to do this teaching, and that still exists today. It's called the Jhana Insight discussion group on Yahoo, and that led to my being here, because on that discussion group I ended up having a lot of correspondence with Michael's brother, Dr. William Chu, from the University of the West. And actually he worked on me for a long time to persuade me to start. He deserves a lot of credit. He was very persistent, because I sort of resisted all the way. I came this far, so okay, I'm willing to teach people who are willing to come all the way to where I live, out in the mountains. And people were coming an hour and a half. They'd drive an hour and a half or more to come. And I was willing to go that far. And William kept pushing, me to do more. And so he played an important role. He really did. He deserves a lot of the credit for that, undoubtedly. But eventually he actually encouraged a number of people that from his Sangha, basically the group of people that he associates with and practices with, they came out to where I live in Arizona, and then in turn persuaded me to come out here. And Deborah has played a really key role in all of that too, by helping to make things happen. This is the third retreat we've done, and for the first one, she did virtually all the organizing, contacted everybody, answered everybody's questions, checked out this place, and made arrangements for us to use it and everything. And then later, Michael and Scott And some other people that aren't here became involved in helping make that happen too. So really, it's been a group effort. It's sort of, it grew organically from, So here I am, the hermit come out of the mountains.
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure, sincerely. It's,
Are you still living in the mountains?
yes, I'm still living in the mountains.
So you just need a little bit more persuasion to get you out in the public. To live like in the center of all the people.
Yeah, I haven't yet been that thoroughly persuaded.
Gotta get my brother to crank up there.
But William is still trying. That's true.
I will find a place here.
Yeah. But this is all I do now is teach Dharma. So I'm a full-time Dharma teacher. Yes.
Yeah, you say mindfulness in mental stages.
Mm-hmm.
Is this mean there are more than one stage?
Mindfulness,
In mental stages.
or more than one mental stage. Well,
Is it?
yes, there are.
Okay. Could you describe a little bit?
Well, actually, I'll just give you some sort of definitions and some structure that this lies in. Okay. First of all, mindful awareness or fully conscious awareness is what we're trying to develop. And we, as you know, as you've experienced, we have different degrees of mindful awareness. Sometimes we can be very dull, not very aware at all. And sometimes we can be very vividly and clearly aware. And so, in terms of mindful awareness itself, and sati is the Pali word for that, it refers to being fully consciously aware and having that there's a quality of penetrating into the object that's observed. That's one aspect of it that we use words like vivid and intense for. And then the other aspect of it is clarity. And what means clarity is that we can look at something, anything we look at, and we can look at it in sort of a superficial and cursory way. And what we do is that we will assume we've actually seen what's there. And a lot of what's happened is that we haven't really seen, but our mind has filled in a lot in terms of our expectations of what we think we're going to see. And so, in that sense, there's not clarity. There is obscuration. It's obscured by the intervening concepts and expectations that keep us from really seeing what's there. So these two go together. If I examine something visually in a penetrating kind of awareness, so I'm really seeing the details of there, then what's also will happen is that I'll see it much more clearly. You know, for example, with this, I might have looked at it just briefly and thought the handle was covered with a piece of cloth. And now I look at it and I realize, no, it's a thread that's wrapped all around it. So that's by seeing what's really there. This is just, it's the general principle. Anything that you apply your mindfulness to, you can have both these qualities of vividness of perception and clarity, the degree to which you remove preconceptions and you try to see what's actually there. Whether you're being mindful of a sensation, you're mindful of a thought, mindful of something you see, mindful of something you hear. So this is the essence of mindful awareness. And I like the word fully conscious awareness. A lot of the language that we use, we get used to it and we know what it means, but it's not self-evidently clear. And when somebody says mindfulness, it's not really obvious what that means. But if you say mindful awareness, then that helps to make it clearer. If you say fully conscious awareness, I think for most people that makes it that catches the meaning of it. You're not just aware, you're fully conscious in your awareness of what's there. So sati is fully conscious awareness. Now, of course, we have been talking about this in terms of this mindful awareness focused on objects, any kind of object. And it can be a thought or an idea as well as a visual object or a tactile object or auditory. It can be any of the senses or any kind of mental object. That's one kind of mindful awareness that is focused on an object. The other kind, I call it introspective mindful awareness. That is where you are aware of your own mind and what's taking place in your mind. And this is the most valuable mindful awareness. It has a name. If sati is the Pali word that means mindful awareness or fully conscious awareness, then sampajana, or sometimes is made as a compound, sati sampajana. Sampajana is the word that means this introspective awareness. It means that you know exactly what's happening here in your mind. In the same way that if I examine this with mindful awareness, I know exactly what I'm seeing. And the stronger my mindful awareness is, the more I truly know what I'm seeing. So if I have sampajana, I'm observing my mind and I'm seeing very clearly what's there. And specifically, when you examine your mind with mindfulness, what you can see is what is the mind doing in the moment. And what the mind does is it creates intentions, it projects perceptions, and it is motivated by there's different motivations, wholesome and unwholesome. It's either motivated by desire and aversion, or it's motivated by generosity and loving kindness and compassion. So, mindful awareness applied to your mind is knowing what your mind is doing in the moment, why it's doing it, and also in that dimension. And this is where this is the important dimension: is what it's doing and the reason and the basis for what it's doing compatible with what you aspire to and what you wish for and what you hope for. So, and applies to absolutely everything. What am I doing? Well, I'm taking a bite of noodles, and what is the reason for it? And the reason for it is that I need to feed my body. It's a time to eat. I'm hungry, and the noodles are good. And is this appropriate? And yes, it is. But another time, you might find you're doing something and you recognize that the reason you're doing it is out of desire or aversion or some emotion that's flavored by that, and you see that it's not indeed appropriate. So that's mindful awareness of the mind. And so you want to learn to practice both. Now the stages of this mindful awareness, first of all, we learn to make it strong by focusing on, in terms of object awareness, by focusing on the various objects. When you're walking, the sensations of walking, and when you're meditating, the sensations of the breath, or when you're doing anything else, just being aware of the object that you're being clearly aware of the object that you're attending to. And as it becomes stronger in that way, then you also at the same time learn to apply that same kind of awareness to your mind. Okay? So now your walking meditation can be walking with your awareness focused on the sensations of the soles of your feet. But now you are also aware of what's happening in your mind as well. And that becomes clearer and clearer by stages. Okay? But that's the two main parts of it. First it's focused on the object, and then it is focused on the mind. And really the way it develops is that you start off, you're looking at the object, and then you look at your mind, and then you look back at the object, and you look at your mind. But after a while you come to a place where you're looking at your mind, and you're looking at the object at the same time. You actually come to a place where it's as though you've stepped out, that conscious awareness has stepped out of the functioning of the mind. And so the mind continues to do what it's doing. The mind continues to observe the sensations of the breath or of walking. But the real focus of mindfulness, of conscious awareness, is on the mind that's doing it. And so both are happening at the same time. So instead of doing one and then the other, and going back and forth from object to mind, object to mind, object to mind, it's both come into clarity.
One more question.
Yeah.
When we are sitting, mindfulness in body is better than in mental stages, is it?
When you're sitting?
Yeah.
Well,
if I try mindfulness in mental stage, it feels a little dizzy. So I change to mindfulness in my body.
What you want to do is to move from one to the other, so that you it's through practice, right? And so if you try to force yourself to, be focused on your mind before you're comfortable with doing that, then you might experience some disorientation, and also you'll find it hard to do. You'll find that your attention is just really hard to, and that's why we use the sensations of the body to keep the mind centered and focused. And so in this way, once the mind is focused on the object, then without losing the object, now you can shift to being aware of the mind. See? And that will keep you grounded, so that you don't float off into the stratosphere and feel very strange and not know where to go with your mindfulness.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I hope that answered your question.
Yes.
They did. Okay, good. Yes?
I'm still eager to continue on the last night's topic. You mentioned about
Omissions of the Buddha. The omissions of the Buddha.
You'd like me to say more about omniscience of the Buddha. Okay. We started with a question that Maple asked: did the Buddha ever make mistakes? And And what they, and I answered that in part. We can see in the sutras accounts that very clearly indicate that, at least by any standards that we would normally hold, that he did make mistakes. In other words, he didn't know the future consequences of everything that was going to happen. And so that, although at the same time we see so much evidence that he's incredibly skillful and very wise, there has grown up in Buddhism the interpretation in what we call popular Buddhism that the omniscience of the Buddha is kind of like the omniscience of the Christian God, who knows everything, everywhere, every thought in everybody's mind, every blade of grass, every, things like that. And this has become sort of enshrined as a tenet of Buddhist truth. But the true omniscience of the Buddha is that he understands the nature of the mind, and he understands the nature of the delusion that is the cause of suffering. He understands the path and the Dharma. That he has in other words, he understands ultimate reality. And through understanding ultimate reality, well, shouldn't call it ultimate reality, ultimate truth. He understands ultimate truth, and on the basis of that, he can help people enormously in terms of relative truth, to a degree that, it seems like a kind of omniscience. And a Buddha is said, one of the powers of a Buddha is said to be the ability to know the minds of others, and this is a demonstration of it. So the fact that a Buddha can direct a teaching at just the right level to a person so that they can grasp it and understand it, and so that they can become awakened, that is a very special and wonderful kind of omniscience. But, in terms of the historical Buddha, you have either two choices. Either he was omniscient, but he pretended he wasn't. He really knew everything, just like God. In which case we have to figure out, well, now how is it, based on all of the other doctrines of Buddhism and the Dharma, that we could account for the Buddha having this godlike power of omniscience? Or the other possibility is that the omniscience that is spoken of, the omniscience the Buddha really has, is the knowing of the nature of ultimate reality, and knowing the nature of the human mind, and fully understanding the path to awakening, realization, gaining wisdom, and so forth. And so that would be my answer to the question. To me, it is, first of all, it's not logical, and I don't see any reason why you need to say that the Buddha has this kind of absolute omniscience, and that when he did things that didn't turn out the way they should, what the commentators hundreds of years later is make excuses, to be apologists, to say, well, what's really happening, make up some kind of story of he knew the past karma from previous lifetimes of these people, and therefore, even though it appeared like this was something that shouldn't have happened, I see no reason for that. That is something that it may be emotionally comforting for somebody who has the need to replace the idea of an omniscient deity with an omniscient Buddha. But personally, I don't feel that need. And I'm really happy to have the omniscience of the Buddha consist of that kind of wisdom, plus the ability to see past lives of every kind of being and understand how karma works. I mean, that's good enough omniscience for me. But, yeah.
How did he respond to his mistake when he found out that a large number of his disciples committed suicide or killed themselves?
He gave a teaching about why this wasn't right. This is the wrong thing to do. Right. And I don't believe anybody ever did that again. So, yeah. Yes?
Would you say more about ultimate truth?
Well, emptiness is the ultimate nature of reality. So, the ultimate truth. I've been talking to you for 8 or 9 days now about ultimate truth. So, if there's a particular aspect of it you would like me to say more about, that's fine. But it's not something different than what we've already been talking about. Okay. Yeah.
Well, the Buddha was assumed to have achieved the full enlightenment at that night, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then why he still need to practice meditation after that, after full enlightenment, till his final nirvana every day?
Well, he didn't give us a specific answer to that himself. And there's several different. Once again, this is sort of the very elaborate explanation is that what he was actually doing in those meditation is he was visiting other worlds and Deva realms, and he was teaching the Dharma in those realms. So that he wasn't just, he was already fully awakened, so he didn't have to practice anymore. So when he sat down and closed his eyes, he was off to teach, in different Brahman realms. Then another explanation is that he chose to stay in the world to teach, and so he nourished himself on the bliss of the practice and experienced the jhanas, and that's what he was doing. That it was in the same way that he nourished his physical body, he supported his mind through a sustained practice to allow him to be able to be in the world and live the way he did and teach effectively for so long.
So he took vacations.
Yeah, right. A daily vacation from samsara. Yeah. Because my coworkers, when they come back from vacations, their wounds heal much faster. It's like their old wound that wouldn't heal. After they come back from a vacation, their wounds all heal. Like, oh, this is good. And same for me. Some of my old scars, they're healing. And as he became older, he, his body did the same thing that all of our bodies do. And there are indications, it sounds like at the very least he has a lot of back problems. And so, quite simply, it might have been part of taking care of himself properly, which was to use meditation to sustain and recover. Yeah, makes perfect sense to me. Another possibility is just, a wonderful thing to do, so he just wanted to.
This is a good example, right?
Yeah.
Maybe also possible is use that time to think, to reflection, how to teach and refine the teaching.
Yeah, well, we have no way of knowing, but I would think that is highly probable. You know, if you look at his teachings and the Dharma and how coherent it is and how well presented it is, one would think that, you know, he spent a lot of time thinking about the best way to present it and describe it and explain it. So that would make perfect sense to me. I would assume that would be the
Well,
case.
even after his full enlightenment, he used weeks to how to say to summarize these.
That's exactly right. Yeah, he didn't start teaching for quite a few weeks, and I think it seems to me very, very likely that what he was doing, as part of what he was doing, and those, not all of it, but part of what he was doing. I mean, at some point, you know, he describes it himself. He puts it in the allegorical terms of being visited by a Mara who invited him to leave this realm since he had already achieved his awakening, and he himself had experienced a question, you know, a doubt as to whether there's any point in trying to teach, and supposedly the god Brahma came to him and begged him to teach and so forth, all of which I think is allegory for the fact that he had to spend some time deciding, you know, this is going to be a tough thing to explain to people. Is it even worth doing? And once he came to the conclusion that it was worth doing, then, you know, it would seem like he would naturally want to think through and organize in a form that could be presented verbally, to decide how to present it. And if you look at what are supposed to be his first two teachings, they're very powerful. They contain so much in them. The first one is a teaching on the Four Noble Truths, and then the second one is a teaching on not self. You know, and so it's like, you know, here I am trying to write a book, you know, and I'm trying to think how to communicate the things that I've learned to other people, and so on and so forth. And I go through this process of organizing in order to do that. And I see the kind of construction and organization in those sutras that are presenting these very, very basic teachings as reflecting that kind of intellectual, what's the best way to present it now, you know. And then, so it would make sense too that throughout the rest of his 45 years or so of teaching, that he would continue to do that, to continue to refine and perfect the way of presenting that. And we do find in the sutras, you know, usually the explanation given for differences in the way different teachings are presented is that he was teaching to people of different capacities, and I think that is absolutely true. I think part of what he developed was systems. How do you present the same doctrine to people with different levels of understanding and background and so forth? That's part of it. But also, I think what we see when we look at the sutras carefully is that, and the sutras are not organized chronologically. It's difficult to know what came before and after because they're not organized according to time. But there are certain sutras where you compare them and it's the same teaching, and it's been refined. He's added some new elements that make it strike home more clearly and more easily and things like that. So this all reflects what I think you would absolutely normally expect to find in a dedicated teacher. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if some of the time that he spent meditating was also spent thinking about the best way to teach. Yes.
How has the teaching impacted your own practice? Has it diminished it because you have a lot less time to practice? Improved it?
No. I really enjoy my practice, and teaching gives me lots of opportunity to practice. And the other main project that I want to do is my writing. It's really all of the other maintenance responsibilities of life that I would I'd probably spend more time on my writing if I had it, but if I had hugely more time or didn't have the writing to do, I'd probably spend some more time practicing. But I'm pretty happy with the level of practice that I on a typical Monday, I'll sit for 3 hours with walking meditation in between with people who come to visit. And then on Thursday night, I sit and I teach, and on Friday morning, I do 3 sits in the morning. And so the teaching, it just gives me the opportunity to practice. I do this retreat here, and I get to come, I do 3 sits a day, and can't complain about that. I can't say teaching is getting in the way of my practice. It's they go together perfect. Yeah? And also, I should explain to you too that for me, there isn't a difference. It's like I'm practicing when I'm sitting and I'm not when I'm not sitting. Because basically, I'm practicing all the time. In one form or another, sometimes with greater degrees of intensity and sometimes with lesser degrees of intensity and focused in different ways. But essentially, there's no real demarcation and separation for me. And that's the direction that I'd encourage you to take your practice in as well. That, like in the course of the retreat, I asked you, to try to practice all of the time, morning to night. And I would suggest that you make it your goal, develop your skills to the point where it's not just in retreat that you continue to practice when you get up and go to eat and do the other things that you need to do, but that as much as possible in your whole life, you're able to do that. Now, of course, if you go live off in the mountains, a real quiet life, it becomes really easy to do that. When you're living in a busy city, driving several hours every day, dealing with large numbers of people on telephone and everything else, it's going to be a challenge. And I'm not pretending it's not or trying to treat that as if it's trivial, because I know it's not. But nevertheless, hold that intention that you want to make your whole life your practice, and that you have your sitting practice and your walking practice and your eating practice and your talking on the telephone practice and your driving a car practice and so on and so forth. Which is where the stages of mindful awareness become, develop those, and then you're able to do that. Yes?
Yeah. Will William translate your book in Chinese?
I think I'll insist on that.
Could they both issue in same time?
What's that?
They both be published at the same time.
At the same time. Well, there's things that I don't have control over.
Why the same time? Wouldn't it be the sooner the better?
Yeah,
if the English is available, of course, publish it first.
Yeah, publish it. As soon as I can get it published, I will, and I won't wait for William.
Yeah.
But I think I'll insist on that. I can't insist, but I can certainly ask you.
You can.
I can use whatever. I've been learning from William how to be persuasive. So I watch William and think, this is how you be persuasive.
I'll learn that from him too.
Yeah. I have a long way to go. He's at stage 10 and I'm at stage 1/2.
Okay. You'll pick up very quickly with hanging around with him.
Yeah. But I do need to develop some powers of persuasion if I hope to be able to spread this teaching effectively to very many people. Trying to persuade you all to get on board. Not just learn the meditation so that you can do it yourself, but learn it so that you can teach other people. Right?
Yeah, I think habitually you're too nice.
What's that?
You're habitually too nice. So people don't take you as seriously as.
I got to learn to be a little
Competitive.
competitive.
Please introduce that one. I'm joking.
But
I'm joking.
there are some things that I would like to persuade you to consider.
We want to be competitive.
Is that one is that we formed a non-profit organization which is legally a church called Dharma Treasure Incorporated as a vehicle to help make teachings available, and so to become involved with that, we want to have a website. We'd like to have. I'd like to have the teachings that are recorded at retreats be made available for other people to listen to. I think it'd be wonderful if they were accessible from the website. They could be. There's a potential for transcription. There's a huge potential for translation to make them available in Chinese. So there's, if I could persuade any of you that have those kinds of abilities to help with making that happen, to make it available in that way. Helping to organize teachings and get more people to come. Deborah's done this, and Michael and Scott, But all of you, any of you that are interested in, any of you who believe that it's worthwhile doing, you can help with this, and you can join forces with William and Michael in persuading me to come out and do these things more often. So I do encourage you all to do that. So this kind of work takes a lot of support. It really does. Just.
But you go other places too, like Sacramento?
Yes,
Okay.
Well, and that's exactly what I'm saying. Is that if you will, if it's something that you want, you're willing to get behind and do, somebody's got to find a location and get people signed up and make all arrangements and stuff. But
there's a group there that has visiting teachers on Sunday night, so it would be like a one-night gig if that would work for you.
Well, we can, whatever it is, we can talk. Sacramento's a long way to go for a night. It would take me at least a day either side of that night to come and go, even if I just did nothing but go straight and come back. But just think about it and talk to me about it, and that's, we'll see where it goes. The other thing too is I really am recognizing the importance of consistency and follow through. In a night, there's not much more I can do than get people interested. So the real purpose of giving a talk one night, or one day, or 2 days, or something like that, would be to create the foundation to come back and do something with people that was going to be longer, right? So, because to spend my time doing, like very short teachings is probably not going to be very effective. I don't know how long I'm around for. I've only got so many days and nights left. I don't know how many. So just think in those terms. That how can I'm a limited resource. How can you make the best use of me? Okay.
There's a a really large Sangha group at Laguna Beach, primarily consists of like Caucasian people. And I think it will be really nice if they can get in touch with you, if I can introduce you to them. I'm wondering what are your plans after the retreat?
Go home.
Go home. Oh yeah, I understand you have plans to do that because of the different circumstances.
Yes.
But in the near future, because I think they're a really dedicated group, except they are lacking, a dedicated teacher. They have like visiting teachers that will go there, give them bits and pieces of instructions, but the thing is, really, I think they have a lot of potential and they can certainly use your help.
Well, that's what I'm really interested in is any sort of a structure or arrangement that, leads to people being, really understanding the teaching, getting the results out of it, them in turn being able to teach and spread it to other people. So rather than piecemeal, like just shots thrown out here and there, some kind of consistency.
Because I don't see them getting anywhere. And then, time is flying, they're getting old. And
that's what I've seen. That's one of the reasons that I decided that I was willing to teach, is I saw that there's so many people, they've been going to retreats for years and meditating for years, and,
they're just like happy hippies, and they don't, they're not.
And if that's what they want, that's fine. I don't need to.
Aging hippie. Happy hippie.
I don't need to persuade somebody to do something. If they're completely happy doing that, then I don't need to persuade them to do something else.
They want more, except.
But if they want more and they just don't know how, then they're right.
Yeah.
Then they're ready.
Yeah.
So.
The time is flying, and your time is flying. I better get you guys together.
Yeah. So we'll do the ripe and ready ones.
I actually told them about you, except that I think, they weren't impressed with my writing, because I'm not as persuasive as William. They actually, spread out the chain email telling them that you'll be here leading a retreat, but nobody signed up. So I think the best way to get their interest is to have you meet with their organizer.
In fact, Jerry planning to come is the person, the Laguna, Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry, which?
Jerry.
Jerry, okay.
Is usually in his home to doing the.
Jerry. The one that we did like the 3-day retreat.
Yes.
Yeah.
I gave him your articles and the thing, and he planning to come. But the last minute he has client and have a project, so he, maybe next time he's really interested and want to come.
He's one of the members, and then it's best to give some of the key members and the organizer to get them together and have a serious meeting.
We talk about this, and so I think it's very possible.
Great job.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that you're interested and have ideas. Keep in mind that it requires, it's not just enthusiasm and running out and making something happen. It's planning something that works, because, I don't have that much energy. There's a limit to how much I can do, and I'd like it to be as effective as possible. So think in those terms.
Oh yeah, they're a huge group.
The other thing is that right now, because the way I like to do interviews, it keeps the size of the group small, and so I need some of you to get to the point where you can do meditation interviews with me and for me, so that we can have more people coming to the retreat. Of course, we need to get a bigger place to have a retreat, but the only way that I can see doing a retreat with 20 or 30 or 40 people is if I have some other people who are competent and capable to help meditators, so that, I'm not the only one. Right?
And then we have to become very good friends.
That's right.
We have to be enlightened fast.
Well, that would be good, but it's not required. But But it requires two things. You need to, a person to do this, to help me in this way, their own practice needs to become very, very good. But it can't just be that. They have to understand the principles of how it works, so that, because the person that they're talking to isn't necessarily going to be exactly the same. So, some of this comes with time. But you have to really understand the principles that I'm teaching you, and you have to understand what you did yourself. There's a lot of people out there that are fantastic meditators, but they can never teach anyone else to do what they do. Because they don't know how they did what they do.
Yeah, that's why you're very rare.
Yes, I recognize that. So.
Yes. I'm glad. You're very honest. So you're a rare treasure.
But it can spread, and other people can be able to do that as well. And it's important that they do. And then one last thing that I would encourage you to do, related but slightly different vein, is consider, making some kind of a formal spiritual commitment, not becoming a bhikkhu or a monk, but taking these 10 precepts that we've been doing and formally committing yourself as a dedicated lay practitioner. Basically taking the same degree of commitment to the Dharma. Think of yourself as a lay monk.
Upasaka.
Upasaka, yeah.
So of course, time is limited, but sometime down the line, maybe you can give us more specific guidelines about the 10 precepts.
Yeah, well, I think that would be a very good thing. We could do a teaching on the 10 precepts and discussion of becoming upasakas and upasakas, and whoever wants to do it can take the precepts and make it, make that formal commitment in your life. So please, the invitation is there. I'd love to come back here and do a upasaka ceremony for a whole bunch of people.
Some of my friends go to the retreat at the end of month in West University.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Some of what?
我些朋友啊 ，South Bay 的，参加时代大学的。因为上次威廉去演讲啊。
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's great. Chinese?
Yes, but their English is better than me.
Okay, well, this is great. We got a plan. We're going to have upasakas who become enlightened and help teach and support spreading the teaching. And, yeah.
It's more motivation for us to practice hard, which is excellent.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah, you now have a larger task ahead of you.
All of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is the last evening, and so are there any last things that anyone would like to discuss or ask before we... Yes.
Could I have one request?
Yeah.
Later on for the meditation time, would you guide us one more time for the metta?
I would be very happy to do that. I was sort of planning to do that anyway, so...
Tonight or tomorrow?
Do a guided loving-kindness meditation.
When?
Tonight.
Oh.
Yeah. So, well, should we take a break and then come back and do that then?
Yeah.
All right.